In 1981, my brother and I traveled to Ireland for our father's, I believe it was 78th birthday. My brother at the time had lived in Ireland for a period of time, had come back and forth to America, had already gotten property here, worked as a hard-working man, and John had become an international shipper, mostly shipping. He'd buy winter goods at the end of the summer goods at the end of the winter. Very good in that area of buying after Christmas, buy up all the Christmas stuff, and he would ship it over to Ireland. And at the time, the dollar was very good against they were not yet in the European market, and it was very, very good against the pound, and he made a very good living like that. When the Lower East Side became alphabet land, and when it wasn't safe to walk around here without an armoured car, John moved lock, stock and barrel and brought his children back home to live in Ireland. John, without any my knowledge really, and not that it made much difference with part of our tradition, he had his way of life and I had mine. Now we were all of us, both of us, were fiercely dedicated to the cause of Irish justice and freedom, not actively involved. I had no knowledge of his involvement, he had none of mine. But deep in our hearts, the fire of nationalism burned, and we felt that if the rest of the world, if the Iron Curtain should drop, if the Berlin Wall should fall down, and if there should be there should be unity among nations, why not for our little island country? So we did our part. And in one particular time that John used to ship ship merchandise from linens to toys to whatever to Ireland. And one particular shipment which happened in that particular time happened to carry with it, it was actually seized by the government at Port Newark. It had a couple of $1 million worth of arms, Armalites and anti-aircraft and whatever, to empower the Irish Republican Army, which we always regarded as a very legitimate rebel group of people. Gravely and grossly misunderstood by the outside world. We were in our own country fighting and struggling for freedom and justice for us. We were not invading American soil. We were not going anywhere. It was not until latter times that we brought the struggle to Mother England to hit her mainly where it hurt in her economy. And never ever did these people who fought in the IRA ever target a civilian target. And when they did go after a secular, non-military target, they always gave more than adequate warning that nobody would be ever injured. To quote some of our own American politicians, there will necessarily be casualties of war. Now, one group of people will say to you, there were criminals, there were thugs, there were this or that and the other. If that be true, why did they not try them when they arrested them? First of all, why did not have them arrested by police? Why were they picked up by military personnel? Why were they interred in prison camps and not in prisons? Why were they tried by not a jury of their trial, but by a diplomat court similar to a military tribunal? So I'm totally unrepentant and unapologetic for my support of these fighting men and women of my country through the 800 blood-stained years of our history. And I think the fight in a different way now, in a more peaceful way, is still progressing. So that particular time, John, I had no knowledge whatever. I went with John for my father's 70th birthday, totally unaware that I had known John had shipped a shipment of merchandise to Ireland. I had no knowledge that for the 2 or 3 years prior to that, with his own particular associates, none of whom I had never heard of or met, had been planning this big shipment of arms to Ireland. They caught it at Port Newark, reconstituted the box, and put it on the container after they took everything off. Arrested my brother for possession of the stuff. And when I saw the box, not on his property, but outside the property, there was an Armalite rifle, there was ammunition and other things. And when they charged him with possession with the intention to do bodily harm, I looked and I said to the inspector or something, well, no way could he do any damage with that. First and foremost, any real rebel shipping anything is not going to ship compatible ammunition with a weapon. Falls into enemy hands, your enemies can fight with you. There might have been, let's say, Uzi bullets for Armalite and what have you. What do you know about that? I'm an educated man. It's my business to know about a lot of things. I'm a priest. I should know what people do. Of course, that was misinterpreted. Now, the major mistake they made, my brother was arrested. I was not. I went down to the local police station, they called it the Guardia station, to see what was happening with my brother. Meantime, the special police, they called the special branch, and those went to my father's house while I was being interviewed. I just went down to give him a solace and help, figure out what's going on. I had no clue what's happening. I had nothing to do with it, whatever. So, they had John under arrest, charging with what they called very broad statute and offences against the state. They don't even have to specify what that is. They'll tell you later what it is. So after about several hours there, I got up to leave. And the chief inspector came in and said, you're not going anywhere, stay there. Then they came in along, and with the fury in the guy's face comes in, and he looked at me, he pointed, he says, we know who you are. We caught up with you. You're their goddamn underground general. We know who you are. Now here's what happened. I didn't have a clue, Michael. I was as incredulous. What are they talking about? I didn't have a clue. But later on I'd find out. So now all the attention of the shipper, of John, the owner of the container and everything, comes over on me. And then American Lines, double-barrel priest pal or gun runner, became international. What happened was, when they went to my father's house, they found my American passport and my Irish passport, and I think the year before, probably 2 years before, I travelled through all of the Middle East, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria. I've been to some hot spots. They said, you've travelled the Middle East, you this, you that, the other, right? Then, of course, they knew my age bracket for my passport. They knew I was educated in a particular county in Ireland. And they knew my name was Pat. And they also knew I was referred to, and on the plume over here was, among the Spanish, Il Padre, the father. They had on their most wanted list of international wanted a guy known as Il Padre. He was known as the Pimpernel. You're familiar with that? To seek him here, to seek him here. To seek him here, to seek him there. To seek him everywhere. Is he in heaven, is he in hell? The damned elusive Pimpernel. So now they figured they got the Pimpernel. Well, they didn't anything close to it. Then when I caught on, I'll get some footage out of this one. I figured to myself, if indeed the Pimpernel's out there, and they think I'm he, while they're concentrating on me, that good man can be out there with my prayers and blessings, doing what he should do for the cause. So, for months they compiled stuff. They surrounded his house for days and days on end. They were in and out of here, the cameras were everywhere, in the school, everywhere. And so, the big mystery. But then, as the plot began to unfold, see, the Pimpernel had been all over the Middle East. And there were common, in fairness to them, there were certain common denominators that could have, but if they did the research, everybody knew I lived here among the young people of the neighbourhood. I was known rarely to leave, and whenever I did leave, even a vacation, I'd bring a couple of my kids along with me, the homeless boys, or a companion from the house. So I was an open book, but they didn't do their homework. So all the time now they're concentrating on the Pimpernel. Then I remember I was coming out from a court hearing this day, and there's a guy in a hat. I knew him right away as this man's. He's one of the best moles, but I have a trained eye. And he comes up to me and he says, well, how are you, Padre? He had a grin in his face. He says, good God Almighty, I was in Spain when I heard they got the Padre. And I rushed back right away. You don't know how I was relieved to find out it wasn't him at all, it was you. I said, thank you. How nice. Well, I said, I hope he's doing well. And I think maybe in that period, the Pimpernel, the Padre, struck somewhere else. So now they realised they're the wrong guy. And after detaining me in Ireland for months, I was first of all put into political prison, which was the biggest mistake they ever did. I was jumped in among the provosts, in their political prison for a very short while, to get to know a lot of them, and make a very big splash, and to meet whom I regard as the heroes and freedom fighters of then and today. So after several weeks waiting and a big rigmarole, they come up with what they call a book of evidence. And they're telling the prosecution, chief prosecutor is telling the high judge, because we're in the diplock court, oh, they've got evidence to tie this man to this and that. He met with Arafat, he met with this one. A lot of stuff they were saying was true. But any meetings I had with any special people was very strictly academic, or theological, if you like. And I would make no, and if it did, I would toy with them, I knew they were a bunch of, I had as much respect for them as I would like being, like the FBI, as I call them the FBI, but I would call them the FBI, they know the meaning of truth or justice, So, these were a rabid bunch of anti-Irish, native Irishmen. So, willing to put down the Ra and everything like that. So finally, after all the time I'm waiting, I appeared before a judge and for a rehearing on my bail. So the prosecution is pushing very hard. I was trying to get my bail modified so I would be able to, I was confined to, similar, almost house arrest. Couldn't leave my native area. And I made a complaint. I said, look, Irishmen have been caught in America and given more freedom to move around, even to come home. Why can't I go back to my mission, come back when you want me for trial? Or, well, that was too dangerous, you see, now, because first of all, they knew I was an intellectual of a degree. They knew that I wasn't going to let them away with anything. And of course now, and then I would have the contact with so many different people, and there was colossal media interest. They were trying to protect themselves. So the chief prosecutor, when they came up to the question to discuss my reevaluation of bail, the chief prosecutor, his name was Farrell, he approaches. Now these guys were sitting up on their podiums or benches, 3 steps up on a big thing with their British wigs and their silk robes, and my lords, he approaches and he bows profoundly as he was bound to God. I wish I could have kicked him in the head. But anyway, he says, my lords, we've been instructed by the government of Ireland and the Department of Public Prosecution to withdraw all charges against Father Maloney. Court went into an uproar. The judge got such a shock, he jumped up in his chair, stood up, and he said, what? After detaining this man this length of time, after the international focus, you are withdrawing all the charges? He said, this man deserves a lot more than the mere withdrawing of these charges. You should never have arrested him to begin with. And of course then, pandemonium. Judge calls a recess, and just before he got a chance to leave the bench, I jumped up and I said, I never called them my lords or anything like that. I said, Your Honours, judges, may I speak? Prosecution? No, you cannot speak. Judge said, yes, he can speak. He said, what's your request, Father Maloney? I said, Your Honour, in view of the fact that the prosecution should be so grossly inaccurate and incorrect in their false accusations against me and detaining me in this country against my wish and hope, I said, is it not possible that it could easily be equally, my brother was being held without any bail. I said, isn't it possible that it may equally be wrong about my brother? And I'm asking your honours to exonerate my £10,000 bail and apply it to my brother and give him a benefit of the doubt, which I said, the credibility of the government, I said, has gone down the drain. At that point now, they've gone mad. Prosecution are turning purple. And they said, we will recess. Now, the guys in the dock, everybody was taking bet. bookies run it. Are they going to let Maloney, my brother, are they going to let the main guy out? Are they going to do this, going to do that, blah, 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 blah? Oh, well, that priest is dangerous, like he's been very powerful, very persuasive. And then what happened? Judges came out and banged the gavel. Chief Judge said, well, Father Maloney, he said, we agree with your premise. And the government has adequately proven its inefficiency. Your brother is released on the same bail that you were. They went mad. Now that was a colossal victory, because John now came out of the Provo prison. Now I figured I'm going to rub their nose in it. I'm totally free, totally exonerated. I decided to go back to visit the poor men I left behind. And of course, these were all, two of them are already now martyrs, and with this, there are songs about them. One, the Line of Brothers, and there was the guy who was trapped down in South America. I met all these men there. And they gave me a tremendous platform, which I make no bones about. When I arrived back here, Paula Dwyer, who was the New York ambassador, American city ambassador to the UN, met me at the airport with a whole bunch of people for debriefing, and told them, I said, hey, I got a story to tell you. What goes on behind the wire? What happened? Then the big one was, which was rather interesting. I was interviewed by the Irish People and by the Catholic New Yorker. And what had happened while I was in Ireland, a barrister, a solicitor, wanted me to broadcast from Ireland. I'm sorry, I'm more anticipating. I came back here to a colossal welcome. Then I went back for John's trial. And while I'm back in Ireland, during my brother's trial, I was on the air to WBAI. And I had nothing to do with it, Mike. I think the devil got inside me. And I said, this is Father Pat Maloney speaking to you on Radio Free Erin from behind the Green Curtain. Next day it's headlights everywhere. The Green Curtain is opposed to the Iron Curtain. And there was a group known as Radio Free Europe, you see. Capitalized it. As a result of that, they set up a program called in PWI called Radio Free Ireland. That's how that came about. So it was a roller coaster thing then for months and months and months. And I got nicknamed the Provo priest or Ara priest, whatever, all as a result of that particular thing. Because naturally, when the government came much later, which is another story entirely, as I said, their attitude was, we didn't get him back then, we'll get him now. John, by the way, to conclude, John eventually had to plead out because the government sent FBI agents and secret agents over to testify against him without giving him the opportunity to rebut with similar, we couldn't subpoena agents here. And John was over there trapped. And so he copped a plea out and he served 3.5 years in the political prison as a political prisoner, acknowledging, yes, I shipped the arms into Ireland and so forth. But now when I was here, and I had to get in touch with, she was then a prosecutor, she's now a judge, Carol Lemon, about that when he comes back, they're not going to grab him again. So we kind of, not exactly double jeopardy because it's 2 different countries, but the circumstances, they weren't ready. So John was able to come back and start his life all over again. Okay. So that's 1981 saga.